Okay, we're doing a very short video. We are actually going to be talking about the Type 4 engine. I've had a lot of requests for a video like this. Personal friends and other media saying they want to know what the results are, since I've had it for just over 5 years, daily driving it for the last 4 years, and then the last year I've been alternating back and forth between the Bug and the GTI. They're just as fun as they're both really fun to drive, and I get thumbs up on both cars, believe it or not. This GTI is 89, so it's like what, 30 something years old, and then this one's a 68, so it's like 52 years old, something like that, if I'm doing my math right. Anyways, who cares? We're just going to talk about the Beetle Type 4 engine. Okay, right now I was detailing it, everything inside, outside, and it looks immaculate. Oh, beautiful. Anyways, Type 4 engine. I have it on the stands because I was washing the engine also. So here we are. Okay, this is custom. This is not. Now you have to build that. Same thing with the serpentine system. You have to build that. This is a Scat, okay, from a Scat Type 1. All I did is modify the nose right there on the other side to open it up a little bit for the crank. Go slow, but you can do it. I did it on my drill press, believe it or not. There's a video that I did on both. No, actually, just this one. I had a video like this, but then I deleted it. It was too shaky. Anyways, so basically, Type 4 engine. This is it. Okay, this is from the Type 4 Porsche 914. It's the same thing as a bus. This thing is original to the car. So all I did is get the alternator stand from CSP, and basically just drilled a hole and put this on. After I drilled and tapped these screws and silicone it, put it on, never leaked. Okay, like I said, custom. This is a oil catch can. These hoses, see this? It goes right there to the head. Same thing with this one, goes to the other side. Basically, they terminate right here, and that got rid of the problem of what was happening back then was, I didn't know this, but my cylinders were all screwed up on my Type 4. I had broken rings on one side and on the other side. I think it was the second ring was broken. So I was burning a lot of oil. And once we went to the big bore, 2-liter, so that was went from a 1950 something or 60 something to a 2056. I think it's a 2056. I could be wrong. Anyways, but it gave it a little more power, and it doesn't burn oil anymore. It used to burn like a quart of oil every 200 miles. Now, 5,000 miles, it doesn't change on the oil dipstick. Same amount of oil. It doesn't go down anymore. Upgrades that I've done is the 60,000 volt coil. Makes a huge difference on hesitations, so I highly recommend it. Just make sure you get the correct one for your distributor. It could be low resistance or high resistance. Make sure you order the correct one. Otherwise, these things are going to go poof. The Hall sensor is going to go poof in here. So IDFs, they're China's, they're garbage when you get them. I have a lot of videos that shows you how to make them into awesome little carburetors for daily driving. Okay. Other than that, the oil cooler is right here. Okay, I'm still getting the air from here, which is the doghouse. This is where normally the Type 1 oil cooler goes. Well, I just went to put a bigger tube all the way across to here. So the air just goes like that. Okay, cooling wise, it runs like a brick of ice during the winter. During the summer, it barely gets to 209. And that is in 110 to 120 degree weather. And I'm doing 80, 90 miles an hour. Okay, this engine is so big, has so much surface area that it cools down really good. The cylinders have a lot of surface area. The heads have a lot of surface area because it's a Type 4 engine. It's designed to push a bus. Okay, we're not in a bus, we're in a Bug. The bus weighs 2 tons. This weighs less than a ton. So we get a lot of cooling. So So much so that I have to sometimes on the winter, I have to remove this and put a little rag with a zip tie so that the water vapor condensation happening in here is able to escape. That's, I kid you not. So as far as this, like these shells, you can get them from CSP. Alternator stand, you can get it from CSP or the Type 4 store. Type 4 store will have the provision already made for this. So you might want to, you know, CSP or Type 4 store. They will have the one without it. You know, I went with it because I didn't know what I was doing. Now I do. So just heads up. You might want to get this from the Type 4. It's going to cost you an arm and leg, but hey, whatever. Same thing, the exhaust. You're going to have to come up with something, or you're going to have to pay like $1,000 for a header, not including the muffler. So I made my Sidewinder. I have a video for that. Let me see if I can, yeah. Anyways, I have a video for that. There we go. Ah, much better. Okay, so basically this is the taco plate. This is where you get your temperature sensor, your oil temperature sensor right there. So get the generic one, it'll fit fine. Basically, but yeah, headers, I made my own. This is the turbo muffler. It's very, very quiet. I like it. And if you can see right there, I actually have a catalytic converter. Just so it doesn't stink that much, and it doesn't, okay? It's almost like a modern car, it doesn't smell. It will probably pass smog with IDS, if you can believe that. Other than that, this is pretty much down here, all of it. The clutch that we're running, the flywheel, also you can get from the Type 4 store, but it's really expensive. Same thing with CSP. I would recommend you get it from Fat Performance. They have it for really cheap. I believe they're the ones that actually manufacture the converter flywheel plate for the Type 4 to accept clutches from Type 1 engines over there. So if you have like Kennedys and high performance stuff, all that stuff will bolt up to this. And you don't want to go with, well, you might, but go with the original clutch. But the problem with that is that when you put it in, it's going to hit. So you have to clearance the transmission tunnel so that it goes in. I don't want to do that. I was like, I don't think I want to do that shit. Other than that, definitely go with the CSP and Fat Performance. You should be able to get all your parts. Now, one of the things that I highly recommend is for you to get an O2 sensor. An O2 sensor with a wideband. Basically, okay, that's like right there is like running really rich. One is the engine is really cold, and the car is like this. So the carburetors are like, I think 1 and 3 are probably running really rich because of the angle of the engine. Anyways, but it leans out to like 12, almost 13 when it's flat. Anyways, as you can see, this is what I did. Serpentine, way better than V-belt. You can get the V-belt kit at CSP also and Type 4 website, but they're very pricey. The Type 4 place is very, 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 very expensive. If you're Uncle Moneybags, no problem. But if you're like me, you know, you definitely want to go CSP and Fat Performance. Okay, as you can see, excellent throttle response. I have no popping through the carburetors, even though the engine is super cold. It's all in the tuning. It's all in the tuning. Your idles are the ones that are going to determine if you're going to pop a lot. Okay, but I mean, listen to my exhaust. There's hardly any noise. It's a very quiet vehicle. I like it because I like to, I have a very loud stereo system. So I have 3 batteries. One on the luggage tray on the side, one underneath the seat, and then the other one on the other side of the seat. So that's 3 batteries because I have a very high current amplifier. But this is also a 70 amp. I should have gotten the 90 amp, but whatever. For that purpose, and this is why I'm running a Serpentine, because if I try running a V-belt with a 70 amp, it'll just squeal like, oh, it'll drive you batty. Okay, other than that, what I did here is, let me turn off the engine like that. Okay, I do have a fuel gauge. It'll tell me, you know, how to calibrate this. These carburetors, the IDFs, they like to run at between 2 pounds to no more than 3. If you go over 3, you run the risk of running slightly rich every now and then. It'll be like an off and on kind of thing. So your wideband is going to be going rich, going lean, rich, lean, rich, lean. So you want to keep it like 2.5. That's what I recommend. Very sensitive, okay? If you go over 3, they'll run rich slightly. But if you go like 4 and keep it at 4 and then just tune with that kind of fuel pressure, you might be okay. Okay, so other than that, basically I had to take apart the doghouse. I have a video, look for it. It just says it's the 914 install on a bug. It down in my video description or video list, if you want to watch that. Basically what I did is I opened it up and put some triangles right here, so that the air, when it comes from the fan, it doesn't hit a huge tube, because I put a huge tube right here and distort all the water or the air and cause turbulence. And it's just, this side is going to run hot. So I did it so that it would flow correctly. And then I built this. The oil cooler is right here. The original seal for the oil cooler is still inside of here. So I just cut it to size and built this thing with the tube, and then I just used a turbo hose clamp right there, and basically that took care of that. Now it's perfect. It cools really good. You could use the Type 1 oil cooler right here. You'll probably still be okay. The Type 1 is actually thinner, but is almost identical in dimensions, except for it's fatter. But the other one is Type 1, so it's thinner. You should probably get away with it. Remember, you're pushing on a bug, not a 2-ton bus. This thing weighs 1,800 pounds, not even 2 tons. So you're not going to make a lot of heat unless you stroke your engine to like 2.2, 2.5. Then you probably want to stick with the bigger oil cooler and probably add a sandwich on your oil filter down here and run a remote oil cooler. Just some thoughts right there. Other than that, car is very reliable. I don't worry about going anywhere. We did modify these carburetors so that they do not suck dirt again and plug up on the idles. Apparently, Weber did this way back when, and then they went back to the racing style carburetors. These are racing style, okay? Racing style. These are not for daily driving, okay? When you buy your Webers, they're not daily driver carburetors. I would recommend you get K&N filters. These will never let the dirt get in there and plug up your idles. The other ones, any other place, even CB Performance, those will let particles go in, and eventually they will find their way into the idle and plug it up. So K&N, when it goes for the filters for the IDFs, definitely go K&N. It's worth the money. They're like $60 a piece, but they're worth it. And, you know, when it comes to headaches, I would rather just pay up the ass and just forget it. Okay. Now, if you drill, I have a video of how I remove the Achilles heel of the IDFs. Several videos. You might want to watch those on how I did the drillings, so these never plug up. I mean, I actually, on a test, because I was beta testing, I removed the air filters and drove it for a whole week without filters, just for shits and giggles, I guess, and testing purposes, obviously. And they never plugged up. The bowls were full of junk. I will say that. When I took off the two stacks for the main and the air corrector right here, those two brass ones right here, the long ones that look like pencils, took them out, and then I sucked out the thing with a brake bleeder. That little jar full of fuel, oh my God, came out with junk and junk and junk, but they never made it to the idle. And that's where I kick ass. Anyways, I didn't know that Weber had already done that way back when. There was a guy in the Samba, I forget his name. Modoc? I think it's Modoc? I could be wrong. He showed a picture, and yeah, IDFs actually did the modification that I came up with. I was like, I didn't know. I just did it because I was tired of having IDFs, the idles plugging up. I mean, it constantly happened, like every 3 months, like clockwork. It was a guaranteed plugging. So anyways, Type 4 engines, I highly recommend it. It's more expensive and more troublesome when you're first building it, but after you build it, you know how everything goes, so it's easy for you to take it apart. And you don't have to make other parts. You know what I'm saying? Everything's already done. So it's more headaches, but more expensive, but they last longer. This will go 200,000 miles or more if you treat it right. That engine over here is just a Type 1. It'll probably do like 60,000 miles, maybe 80, and you have to do a teardown. You have to inspect everything, the cylinders, the rings, the heads, everything you have to tear down. On this, about no more than 60,000 miles. You have to do a teardown. That, I could literally go 200,000 miles and just adjusting my valves, and that's about it. That's it. Oil changes and, you know, regular maintenance. And that's it. It'll do the 200,000 miles. Not that. That's why I'm saying it is cheaper to build that than it is to build that. And this one will overheat in a very hot environment. Okay, like here, this thing will grenade in Bakersfield. If you drive it at 90 miles an hour all day, it'll just grenade. That one, you can drive for hours and hours at 110 degrees, driving 80 to 90 miles an hour. Nothing will happen. Indestructible in the heat, the Type 4. This Type 1 is very destructible at any speed. A very hot environment, especially if it's a built motor. This is a 2234 with a FK42 cam. This thing hauls ass with a single carburetor because it got the 39 millimeter carburetor instead of 34 throttle. Instead of having a 34, it's got a 39. Okay, so it just flows and it hauls ass. That's too much stuff on that. I'm not going to go into that one. But basically, Type 4 engine, I do highly recommend it, guys. Definitely recommend it. I would definitely do it. If I knew what I know now, I wouldn't have wasted thousands, probably tens of thousands of dollars on my Type 1 engines. I would have just gone Type 4, and I would probably still have that engine right now, that Type 4 engine, if I knew what I know now. So I highly recommend it. Anyways, that's pretty much the video. I hope you liked it. And basically, well, adios muchachos, adios muchachos. A los guacho. It's not starting. I'll try it again. It's not starting. What the fuck? What's my voltage? That thing says 11.9, 12 volts. That can't be right. Okay. It was running just a minute ago. You're making me look bad, fool. I think the switch right here, it's been doing it for the last 17 years, where I just turn it, and it usually there's a delay of a half a second to 2 seconds, and then the starter kicks on. I think it finally kicked the bucket. And I have to put a hard start relay. Hard start relay! I have one right there. And I already built it. I just have to plug it in. It should take me like 15 minutes since everything's already made. All right. I was going to do that eventually. It looks like today's the day. Okay. Moving on. Hard start relay. It's on. Let's see what it does. Look at that. Look at that. Make me look bad, man. Okay, so I totally forgot how to drive this car because I've been driving the GTI. The clutch is different. There we go. Burn rubber. All right. That was that.